From the CISO Series, it's cybersecurity headlines.
Experts say new Windows AI feature could be a security disaster. Ticketmaster hack involves a cool 500,000,000 customers, and the FBI says it has 7,000 Lockbit ransomware decryption keys on hand. These are some of the stories that my colleagues and I have selected from this past week's cybersecurity headlines. Yeah, it's like getting fresh corn. We're going through, we're peeling back, we're shucking it just a little, looking for the best ones. We're putting them in our little basket, taking them to the checkout. And now we're ready for some insight, opinion, and expertise from our returning guest, Andrew Wilder, the CISO at Community Veterinary Partners. Andrew, thank you so much for making this return voyage to the cyberspace. Really appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Rich. I appreciate your having me. And I guess I did okay the first time because you guys asked me back again. And when David asked me about this, boy, I had no idea what an exciting news week it was going to be. So I'm really looking forward to it today. We got some great stories here.
Yeah, lots of good news, some less than good news, but always it is definitely packed. It was tough to make the cut, so I'm super excited to get into the news too. Before we do so, have to spend a moment and thank our sponsor for today, Conveyor, market-leading AI for automating customer security reviews. Remember, you can join us on YouTube Live. To do so, go to CISOseries.com, hit that old events drop-down, and look for the Cybersecurity Headlines Week in Review image. You click on it, you join us. You know how the internet works. I don't need to lay it out for you. But when you're there, be sure to get your comments in our chat. I already see CCL and Michael Vinding wishing happy Fridays to all. I will extend that to all of our audience. Even if you're listening on a Saturday, you still get a happy Friday retroactively. It's fine. We've got about 20 minutes, though, so let's jump right into all of that big news. First up here, this one was percolating kind of all week. Experts say new Windows AI feature could be a security disaster. Microsoft previously announced a new AI-powered recall feature for Windows 11 that screenshots everything a user does on their PC and allows them to search and retrieve anything in seconds. It's part of a new Copilot Plus PCs that are debuting on June 18th. They have NPUs. They're very fancy. Microsoft is very proud of these. Security researcher Kevin Beaumont, who helped test the feature, discovered that recall stores data locally in plain text, which could allow an attacker to use malware to easily extract the database and its contents. Further, Recall doesn't hide sensitive information like passwords or financial account numbers in its screenshot. Microsoft describes this as not doing any kind of content moderation, I guess, on your Recall data. Microsoft also points out that stored Recall information is encrypted using BitLocker while stored locally, but that would really only protect data from theft of a physical stolen device, not if malware gets on a PC, which has been known to happen, Andrew, right? I think once or twice. It's notable after hearing these concerns later in the week, just today, Microsoft said it will not make it a default feature on new devices. It had been a default. You had to deactivate. It was kind of convoluted, and now will require users to proactively choose to turn it on. So, Andrew, easy to see why Microsoft would want to make a product that makes its customers' lives easier and certainly play up a lot of these NPU and AI features that they're really touting here. This one seems to be, from the perspective of, security experts anyway, kind of on par with writing your debit card PIN on the back of your debit card. I'm curious if that's how you see it, or has Microsoft come up with the winner? They got a lot of R&D on their side.
So the security community has been blowing up about this topic this week, as I'm sure you know. When I look at it, does it make me feel better that they've now turned off this feature? Like a tiny, tiny bit, right? Because people are not very good at managing their PCs. We're both IT experts who know what we're doing, but if you think about the majority of people, they're not really sure what's going on. And if that thing gets flipped on, boy, what a treasure trove of data for any attacker to get. To me, the whole thing just screams, data privacy issues, and saying that your computer is protected with BitLocker, that's a pretty weak answer. So for me, this is a thumbs down to Microsoft for this one. And boy, I can't wait to see how this one plays out as well.
Yeah, I'm also really interested to see how this will impact. Presumably, this feature is going to make it to like fleet devices at some point. I know the original Copilot PC stuff, that's all consumer based, obviously, but like, how does having a plain text database on your work device, how does that work? Because this feature seems like it would be really valuable in the workplace too.
I can see that. I mean, imagine from a corporate security perspective, and now you can see plain text, everything that people are typing on their computers. I mean, it's very Big Brother-ish. And again, if I'm an attacker, this is beautiful. Now I've got all of your plain text stuff. I've got screenshots of everything. I mean, it's just the ransom situation just seems horrible. I mean,
Yeah, Christian Emery in our chat here says he's waiting for the arrival of Total Recall memes to talk about this product, but definitely scared by this. And CCL points out the social engineering of just getting people to turn this on. Like we've seen what remote desktop software can do, let alone like getting people just to flip a switch. I could just see there's a whole script that's being written for when this actually rolls out. And also kudos on your grandma for getting a Copilot Plus PCs. Those things the hardware looks pretty cool. Good stuff. We will definitely keep an eye on that. Any more updates that we see on this and as the story evolves, and any new security findings for sure on cybersecurity headlines. Next up here, Ticketmaster hack impacts 560 million customers. A third party denies liability. We're talking about all sorts of stuff today, and this attack has been confirmed by parent company Live Nation as having been the result of unauthorized activity within a third-party cloud database environment containing company data. The attack was performed by the same threat actor group that breached the Spanish bank Santander around the same time, and in both cases, the third-party vendor in question, cloud storage giant Snowflake, has denied that its products were to blame in either breach. According to Wired and other outlets, this may be the beginning of a widespread collection of breaches, given that Snowflake has many clients. The thought is that a Snowflake employee may have been infected by an info stealer that collected the details that the hacker needed to log into these systems. So, Andrew, kind of this vulnerability, we've seen this many, many times on this show, comes down potentially to a single person, yet the result may become global when we're talking about a company like Snowflake, maybe even on a SolarWinds kind of scale. I'm curious, what's your take on this?
well, so the interesting part of this is this security firm Hudson Rock had an article that was posted online earlier this week that has now been removed, probably by their lawyers, that was saying that, yeah, they had confirmation that it was definitely a Snowflake ServiceNow account that was used, and those were the stolen credentials. And of course, Snowflake keeps denying it. I think you're right. I think we're going to see this blow up into something major. It's not a coincidence that both Santander and Ticketmaster had these same kind of databases, and we're starting to see this, continue to happen. I can't wait to see how this one unfolds as well. It could be something big. You're right.
Yeah, I think also like the Move It breach might be a model for like what kind of fallout we could potentially see from this. Yeah, it's one of those ones where it feels like this is just the first of many drum beats that we're going to hear on this in the headlines for sure.
Yeah, and it's not surprising to see Snowflake denying it by default, right? I mean, if you can imagine, if you were them, that's probably what you would do until you had some proof that it was you. But boy, it sure seems like it could be. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, more updates. Again, this is one we'll definitely be following and giving updates on the show. Next up here, FBI says it has 7,000 Lockbit ransomware decryption keys. Speaking at the 2024 Boston Conference on Cybersecurity, Brian Vorndran, Assistant Director of the FBI Cyber Division, said the agency is offering help to victims whose data was encrypted by the Lockbit ransomware. The victims are encouraged to contact the FBI's Internet Crime Complaints Center. The report asked for information, things like the version of Lockbit that was used to encrypt, what files were encrypted, a copy of the ransom note. You also have to say please. There have been more than 1,800 Lockbit encryption attacks in the U.S. So I guess they have potentially a key for each one. Andrew, this sounds like a great step forward for Lockbit victims. These kind of keys can definitely make a huge difference. But since we're in the business of defense in depth, does your spidey sense speak to you about maybe what might go wrong here? I can just see a whole bunch of, FBI complaint center phishing sites just soaking up, asking for all sorts of data to, use in other things.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's both a good and a bad side to this, Rich. So first, on the positive side, I'm a big proponent of working with law enforcement. If you have something like this, contact them, get them involved. They have a lot of times the tools to help you or the intel to help you. So it's wonderful that they're saying this. And I think people, if Lockbit does happen to you, I sure hope not. But if you do, I would say, reach out to your FBI field office. And by the way, make those relationships today so that if it does happen in the future, you already know who to talk to and you have a good relationship. But Spidey sense definitely tingling here, right? Because there could be, and every time there's big news stories like this, attackers see that and they start to use that as ways to collect data. So it certainly could be used or spoofed in the wrong way for sure.
All right, next up here, Utah student floods hackers with false info to thwart phishing. A high school student in Utah, Charles Mortensen, has developed a program dubbed Vega, which stands for Victims Empowerment Guard Against Attacks. Kudos, Charles, on a great acronym on top of everything else. This aims to take down phishing sites by flooding them with fake usernames and passwords, essentially giving them, a big noise to signal ratio. Mortensen said the program can send about 500,000 requests to a site within a night, typically taking the site offline by the morning. Mortensen said Vega has enabled him to take down 30 phishing sites within a month. He is seeking a sponsor to help him scale the operation to potentially dismantle much larger volumes of phishing sites. So yeah, kudos again to Charles for kind of thinking outside the box here. Since he's taken down some of the big players, I'm curious, Andrew, what do you think about this? It's looking like he's basically, it's a form of DDoSing, right? Like making their data useless by, giving a bunch of garbage. Is this an original technique? And do you think this can, maybe scale to large security companies and CISOs need to take notice? What are your thoughts?
So first, let me echo your kudos for Charles. Great job, Charles. And I love this kind of fighting back thing. Nation states are pretty good at doing the fighting back stuff. Most corporations and people don't do a lot of fighting back. So I kudos to him for doing that. I think the reason that he started it was because a friend of his had their Instagram phished. And I've known a number of people who this has happened to, and there's no way to get it back, and there's no support for that to happen. So, I think it's great that we go against these folks. In terms of CISOs taking notice, scaling up, those are things that could happen. I don't know, but I hope, if Charles is looking for money or sponsorship or something, that someone listening out there, go contact Charles and give him a little bit of seed funding, and let's see what he can do to help take these people down.
I had this thought where I was like, okay, well, it might be easy for an attacker to like see this information coming from a range, like a small range of IP addresses, so they could sort that out. And then I was like, oh, what if you got a bunch of distributed devices to all send this? And then it was like, I've just reverse engineered a botnet, I think, but for good. So I don't know. I don't know. We had someone on LinkedIn that's saying phishers are going to need Cloudflare anti-bot tooling for their stuff. I mean, that's an example of where there isn't analogous threat actor infrastructure, or at least as readily available as we have as defenders. So that's actually a really good point. So thank you for that, anonymous LinkedIn user. Appreciate it. Before we move on to our next story, we have to spend a few moments now and thank our sponsor for today, Conveyor. Why did the AI cross the road? To complete your security questionnaires for you. Conveyor, the company using market-leading AI to automate the entire security review, wants you to check them out and book a call so they can stop writing these cheesy podcast ads. Please. If you're ready for AI to instantly complete security questionnaires for you, visit conveyor.com. Visit conveyor.com to try a free proof of concept. Mention this podcast for 5 free questionnaire credits when you purchase a pro plan. U.S. research using psychology against threat actors. The Intelligence Advanced Research Projects Activity, or IARPA, picked 5 research teams to look into threat actor behavior, hoping to boost cybersecurity measures by better understanding motives and maybe even predict future actions. This will involve roughly 150 people working across different teams from Raytheon, Peraton Labs, Charles River Analytics, SRI International, and Grammatech, which sounds like a company that makes technology for grandmas. The teams will take different approaches, like monitoring security researchers for biases that could apply to threat actors, kind of look at the white hats and then see if they can apply that to the black hats, designing fake networks to waste threat actors' time. Actually kind of reminds me of what Charles is doing, increasing that signal to noise, or noise to signal. Program manager Kimberly Ferguson Walter said threat actors routinely take advantage of known human biases, and defenders should attempt to do the same. So, Andrew, we have seen these types of stories before, looking to understand the motives and the mindsets of threat actors. And it is likely that this time around, I'm curious, is it likely that this time around teams will be able to capitalize on this kind of research? Maybe, hey, we have AI, we can do some advanced profiling and analysis to maybe, make a better predictive engine. is this the right place for research, or or should we maybe be focusing more on, I guess, the supply side of this, with companies maybe looking for better ways to deflect social engineering scams, phishing, that kind of stuff? I'm curious.
So I'm not going to say anything against this, right? I mean, it's certainly a good thing to try.
Hmm.
I first of all, I you really cracked me up on the grandma tech,
It's
but
all good to see whatever.
yeah. I love that. Just like Mr. Mortensen, they are creating fake networks to waste threat actors' time. I think that's a great thing to do, and why not use psychology? If you think about security awareness training, which we can all agree is broken and is a click through exercise right now for most people. If we find ways to use psychology to make it more, I don't know, tacky for people, to make it more interesting,
Hmm.
some kind of take home stuff. Why not do that as well? So I think we can use psychology in multiple ways in cybersecurity to help us, both in the awareness bit and also in terms of understanding how an attacker's mind works and how to better thwart them.
Yeah, Jeff Belknap, he described security as primarily a design discipline, like at its core. And I think about that all the time, of like thinking about what, obviously the implementation of all of this is technical, right? But we have a whole toolkit of like understanding human behavior, how humans interact across a variety of disciplines, that I feel like we could bring to bear on this problem. It doesn't just need to be, we need a better tool to do this. It's like, well, if we understand how other people are doing stuff, maybe this is just me, my liberal arts degree speaking, but it makes me happy when I see this kind of stuff, because I do think there are other resources that we could be throwing at this problem, and this, I feel like, is a good step in that direction.
Absolutely.
All right, next up here, EU probes Microsoft 365 education over privacy concerns. The European Union is investigating Microsoft's education-focused suite after a non-profit privacy rights group filed 2 complaints over concerns about how the data from Microsoft 365 education platform was being used. The European privacy group NOIB, the brainchild of lawyer and privacy activist Max Schrems, alleges that minors' data is being processed unlawfully and that the company is being consistently vague about how the children's information is being used. NOIB also claims Microsoft installs cookies without consent to track user behavior, impacting thousands of EU and EEA students. NOIB argues schools are not in a position to comply with EU's, to comply with EU transparency requirements or data access rights. In a statement to TechCrunch, Microsoft said M365 for Education complies with GDPR and other applicable privacy laws. So, here we have an imbrilago with David and Goliath overtones here. You have NOIB, which stands for none of your business. And if you've heard the name Max Schrems, it's because he's dismantled every privacy shield agreement. Like this guy knows how to play the game for sure. I'm curious, Andrew, does this seem to hold water to you when compared to, kind of the nothing to see here, we're in compliance kind of stock response we're having from Microsoft? What's your take on this?
So it's the second time today I'm going to say, "Oh, Microsoft." My gosh, I feel like they're going to come back and say, "Well, don't worry, because all the data that's on the students' PCs is encrypted with BitLocker, so it's totally fine." Um,
BitLocker solves all problems.
That's right. That's right. It's
there.
everywhere, so we're all fine, and there's no more attacks. I think the Noib guy is probably right.
Mm-hmm.
And GDPR is a wonderful thing that's helped the privacy of everybody, right? Because it started in Europe, but then all kinds of other countries started adopting it. So I think he's probably there.
All right. And our last story for today, HHS allows Change Healthcare to file breach notifications for others. A reversal from the Department of Health and Human Services this week. This updates a previous stance that said every organization impacted by the Change Healthcare attack would have to file their own breach notices with federal and state regulators. If you've been following the story at all, that's a lot of organizations that have been impacted by this. This obligation now simply will work. This new position says that impacted entities that want Change Healthcare to provide breach notifications on their behalf should contact Change Healthcare. Basically, they can have them do it for them. So, Andrew, do you see this as a proactive step, one that shifts the burden onto the organization responsible for the breach? or at least that had the breach happen to them? And if so, do you see such a position as being more transferable to other industries? You mentioned like the Move It breach, for example, that impacted a ton of organizations too. It'd kind of be nice to have kind of a single throat to choke, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, yeah. I was thinking about this. It may set a precedent. I think about all of the organizations that were impacted by Change Healthcare, and some of them being smaller organizations, and then telling them, "Oh, you have to file your own breach notification." It's like, what? I don't have the staff to do that. I don't have the expertise. I don't know what to do here. So I think in this case, it makes sense. But it's interesting because it certainly could set a precedent, and we could see things like Move It and other things like that, single throat to choke, as you say. So I don't know if it would be good or bad, but I'm glad that at least in this scenario, they're making it this way. I think it makes sense.
I was thinking about this in terms of like, to add to the problem of, oh my gosh, a third party resulted in our data being out there and stuff like that. You're still going to have to do all the compliance stuff and due diligence to figure out how you were impacted. Like that doesn't take that requirement and that burden off of that victim organization, but anything that streamlines things, because with Change Healthcare, we're seeing the disclosures taking so long to get out there. And if that can make that process a little easier, just from I guess an end victim standpoint, I feel like that's a net positive. We can get those notifications out faster, so your damage, right?
Yeah, so you get your 2 years of free credit monitoring because your health information is out there. That doesn't really
Well,
seem
luckily, your
fair,
health
but
goes away after 2 years. We
that's
all know
right.
that.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Just get a new one.
All right. Well, we had some awesome people participating in our chat. We had CCL coming in, going back kind of the psychology story we were talking about with the research there. And he says, as my CISO says, people is greater than process, is greater than technology and tools. An excellent point, CCL. It depends on the people. Let's be honest. Sometimes, maybe. But I'm just kidding. Just kidding. But some really good stuff from CCL, from Christian Emery. We had Michael Vinding checking us out there, and an anonymous user on LinkedIn is posting. I don't know why that name's not porting over. I'm sorry, anonymous LinkedIn user. We love you too. Before we get out of here, Andrew, was there any story in the news this week that kind of really stood out to you? I don't know, sticking with you to this week.
So yeah, there was a big one that I enjoyed this week. It was about pig butchering, and ever since I saw the FBI present on pig butchering here in St. Louis a couple of months ago, I've been fascinated with the topic. And it's a story of a victim, the kind of the standard victim, American Midwest guy who's retired, was scammed out of $715,000 entire life savings. And you can read in the Wall Street Journal the chats and then at the end, just kind of desperation of like, now I've lost everything and I have no retirement. And there's these farms of people that are doing this. If you get fake LinkedIn connections from people who seem very suspicious and are trying to get you into a romantic discussion, avoid that, report the profile as fake, but just a horrible thing that's happening to people. And we need to stop this. There's a lot of victims here, so we need to put an end to it.
And I always think of this too, is that I guess the chain of tragedy doesn't even end there, because a lot of these giant farms of people are literally people that are locked in there.
They
They
are.
were they were scammed into coming to there. They're thinking they're getting out of a bad situation and ending up, these farms that are basically run by criminal organizations. And Wired had a piece, I think about a year and a half ago on that, and it's just like the most harrowing story. So yeah, it is a fascinating and kind of sad thing, but we need to draw light onto that, so at least we can, hey, if we can stop the suffering, if make it not worth their time, then these criminals at least won't be doing that. They'll find something else to do because they're criminals. It's what they do. But yeah, if we can shine a light on it, maybe we can change the incentives around, make it a little better for everybody, maybe. Speaking of better, this show was better by having Andrew Wilder on. Andrew, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and everything. Where can people find you on the cyberspace if they want to keep tabs on you?
Probably the best way to connect with me is on LinkedIn, Andrew Wilder, pretty easy to find. I also have a website, cybersecurityintheboardroom.com, just all spelled out. So you can check out, in fact, this podcast will be on there pretty soon. So you can find me there too.
We will have that in our show notes. Good stuff. Well, Andrew Wilder, CISO at Community Veterinary Partners. Again, thank you so much for gracing our show again, for making it wonderful with your presence. Truly, truly appreciate it.
Thanks, Rich.
And we also want to thank our sponsor for today, Conveyor, market-leading AI for automating customer security reviews. And thank you to our audience today. We love having your comments. I know we can't get every single one we have up on our screen, but it makes my day to see people interacting with the things that we're talking about, giving us their takes. And it always is a treat. If you haven't joined us live, every single Friday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. You can just come on over to the CISO Series YouTube channel and find us there. Remember to come back next Friday. We have other live streams here with the CISO Series. It starts with Super Cyber Friday, where our topic will be hacking the conversation around risk, an hour of critical thinking about how to elevate communication with the business. That's at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, and then our weekend review starts at 3:30 Eastern. It's a Friday of live streams. We have a great time. And if you just want to get your news in about 6 minutes every single day, guess what? Cybersecurity headlines will keep you up to date. Until the next time we meet, I'm Rich Straffolino, reminding you to have a super sparkly day.
Cybersecurity headlines are available every weekday. Head to CISOseries.com for the full stories behind the headlines.